What's happening, Bills Mafia? Ryan Thomas here for another edition of the Thomas Take Sports Podcast. Bills Mafia, greatly appreciate all of you tuning in for this Wednesday's show. This episode pre-recorded due to some schedule conflicts on my end, not on our guests and Rob Crippen of Nickel City Crew. We're building that base. I want to tell you guys, thank you very much for tuning in to last week's show. 17,000 viewers live simultaneously across all platforms, making it the highest rated episode of the Thomas Take Sports Podcast. So thank you so much to all those that have tuned in. Of course, this week I'm joined by a fellow member of the Buffalo Fan Base Podcast Network. Of course, Rob Crippen, Nickel City Crew. As I mentioned, it's a pleasure hosting you, Rob, on my podcast this time around.
Oh man, thanks for having me, Ryan. I really appreciate the invite. Congratulations again on the viewers. It was funny because I had my most viewed show as well last week. DT and I and we had enjoyed it. And then to hear 17,000, it lets me know I got to stay humble and hungry. Got to keep working, because that's a big number. So congratulations for sure.
Thank you, thank you. It was really distracting in a good way, while I was on the podcast to see the amount of people see the amount of people interacting with not just me but with one another. It was really cool. I feel like
Yeah,
the fan base is really starting to build some steam. The Stampede full steam ahead, right? It,
yeah,
it's been it's been
absolutely.
it's been really awesome, and I've really enjoyed getting the chance to work with guys like yourself and the chance to interact. We've been interacting a lot on Twitter/X.
Yep.
We'll talk about that with some of the interactions that we've had as we work through this. But of course, wanted to get your take on a few main storylines, obviously pertaining to the Buffalo Bills. Everybody's really excited for this upcoming NFL draft. We'll talk about that. But obviously, we're still in the midst of free agency. Buffalo added a key piece to their offense at the wide receiver position. Everybody was clamoring for a wide receiver type signing. Of course, we saw some guys come and go. Hollywood Brown went to KC, and then lo and behold, Buffalo brings in their own guy, Curtis Samuel. I want your take on Curtis Samuel as a whole, his game, and how do you see Curtis Samuel fitting within the Buffalo Bills offense?
It's interesting because when the signing came across, I remembered and I kind of, initially just got excited because of the fact that I was like, is this the same guy I'm thinking about? And I'm down here in Charlotte, Ryan, now currently. And I was like, I think he played for the Panthers. Now, obviously, he played most recently for the Commanders. And I just remember Curtis Samuel being a versatile player. Now, you remember he played running back at Ohio State. I'm a Michigan fan. So I'm really familiar with Curtis Samuel. And he's versatile. The first thing that came to mind was versatility. The first thing that came to mind was the fact that he can run a full route tree for you, Ryan. I think that, he's a guy that he's not necessarily, a wide receiver two, bona fide or anything like that. But I think that he fits in, he slots in right after the fact that you've got Shakir, who has kind of etched out his niche, so to speak, in the slot. And I think that it's just a perfect fit because this guy plays in the slot. He plays on the outside. He's fast. He's shifty. He's, yards after the catch. He's all the things that you really want. And it was funny because you talked about Twitter or X. I had gotten into it with a couple of Bills fans that were just immediately, down on the move. And I was just like, I see it as another weapon for Josh Allen. I see it as another weapon for Joe Brady. And I just think that there's nothing wrong with it. I'm looking for more points. Nickel City Crew knows full well that I'm all about the points and offense. So anytime you can get another weapon for 17, I'm on board.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's another versatile weapon that I feel has only touched the ceiling here and there. We haven't seen him fully,
Mm-hmm.
epitomize his full potential just yet, and I think a lot of that has to do with the situation that he was in. Situationally, not the best
He
quarterbacks
plays
around
with
him.
some bad quarterbacks, Ryan. You
So
can say
yeah, I'll say it. He's played with some terrible quarterbacks. So
it.
Josh Allen's probably going to be the best quarterback he's ever played with to date. And for certain, I know for a fact that he's pretty pumped up about getting the chance to work with Joe Brady again. It seems like players really saw a difference when they went from Ken Dorsey to Joe Brady, not just on the field, but off of it too. It seemed like the players were a little bit looser. There was a little bit more of like a college energy to their
Mhm,
offense
mhm.
in comparison to what there was before. And to be honest with you, I think it's always fun to see these new signings come across the screen. You're tuning in on ESPN, Buffalo signs Curtis Samuel, and when you go to X, it's going to be an immediate either yay or
Yeah,
nay
yay or
reaction. You're
nay. Yep.
scrolling down your feed and you're like, what are people going to say about this? And I saw a lot of that too, Rob. I saw a lot of fans saying, I don't know if this is the right guy. I thought it was a great move because I think he's never played in an offense like this before, and we know he's done well in very limited opportunities
Hmm.
offensively with really bad quarterbacks, really bad coaches.
Hmm.
As Carolina has had their peaks and valleys, and Washington has certainly had their peaks and valleys over the years. So I'm curious to see how your thought process kind of goes. Do you think now that they've added Curtis Samuel, do you think they'll still draft a receiver in the first round? I know there's a lot of mock draft people out there that still believe they will take a Brian Thomas Jr. or an Adonai Mitchell or a McConkey or a Troy Franklin. Do you think one of those four guys is still in the cards for Buffalo, even, with this signing?
I do. It's funny that you said that because I ran a poll, shortly
Mm.
after seeing the reaction on X and how people were reacting to it. Like you said, there's nobody that just sits in the middle on Twitter. They're either one side or the other. So it was either left or right. And for the people that were on the left, I thought of the actual poll and I said, well, exactly your question. Now that the Bills have addressed it with Curtis Samuel, what do you think? Now we got over 1,500 votes in on the poll, and it was resoundingly leaning towards me. I said round one, round two, or round three plus. And I put in quotations that, hey, Brandon Beane's got it. We trust him. We know that he's going to figure it out. So it doesn't matter. I have full faith in him to cover it if it's after round three. It was over 76%, Ryan, that said
Wow.
round one. So I think that, for now, obviously it's a small sample size, but for those 1,500 fans, they still don't think that this is a need that has been fulfilled to the point where we just need to stop. And that's exactly where I land on this. I think that, Adonai Mitchell, any of those guys. I mean, I've heard a lot of talk about Xavier Legette lately from South Carolina, who's down the road for me. And it's just a situation where, Samuel doesn't stop you from actually addressing the need, because what you're doing with the draft is I posed this as, a point on Nickel City Crew last week. We just came out, season 4 debuted. And listen, you've got those types of receivers. You've got to groom somebody for Stephon Diggs once the actual road does come to an end. Now, obviously he's under contract for many more years, and I still feel that he's an elite wide receiver one. However, it's good to have that cost control, and it's also great to have that fifth-year option, Ryan. Because of that
Yeah.
fifth-year option, it gives you the flexibility because of the fact that they're paying receivers so much money now. I don't
Right.
see a safety. I don't see a defensive tackle. I don't see, edge rusher you could debate about, but a cornerback or anything like that. You're not going to get much better bang for your buck than to draft a wide receiver in the first round because of that fifth-year option, the flexibility it provides.
I completely agree. I think the name of the game, I mean, any team that has had relatively legitimate success these last few years, they have been able to build through the draft. And I'm not even going to say the last few years, I'll correct myself. Any team that's been successful over the last 50 plus years of the modern era that is the Super Bowl era, you have to build your team through the draft. It's not only something that
Mm-hmm.
makes your team better for the long haul, but when you're paying your quarterback, which is a good problem to have. I don't want to, I don't want anyone to get confused by
Definitely
that.
is.
It's a good problem to have Josh Allen paying him, the 30 million restructured and 40s and 50s and 60s that he'll touch, as these years wear on. But at the same time, you have to make room for your roster, and you also have to make room in a way that makes Allen even better. And adding
Mm-hmm.
Curtis Samuel, I felt like it was a really fair deal for Curtis Samuel, and then drafting a wide receiver, Xavier Legette, his name is being thrown around. The guy's got one of the coolest voices in any voice that I've ever heard. But I honestly, I like all those guys. I like all those guys that I mentioned. I wouldn't be against any one of those guys for that reason that you mentioned, Rob, that obviously cost control is really important. Building this team offensively, I think, is where this team has kind of come up short. You look at the Cincinnati's, even when
Yes,
the Chiefs had Tyreek Hill, it's almost like it's an arms race. These teams are trying, all the teams in the league are
that's
trying to
right.
get as many weapons for their quarterbacks as humanly possible. Too much is never enough, I think,
That's
at
right.
this point, right?
Yeah, there you're absolutely right. You hit on that. You're speaking my language because there's never too much. There's never such a thing as too many weapons.
Right.
And what we should be realizing now as Bills Mafia, as we look at our team and we look at the maturation of Josh Allen. Now, we can officially say that we're entering phase 2 of Josh Allen's career in respects to the roster construction. What you should be able to understand now is that it's going to be really hard to beat that guy in Kansas City based on stopping him. So what you really but this is obviously my opinion. They all are opinions, but my opinion is that you want to try to find a way to outscore him. I think that the days of trying to stop him and limit him is almost futile because of how fast the quarterbacks get the ball out, the protections, the different route concepts. You see how Andy Reid is such a master at deception and different things like that. That it's about time where you're not necessarily conceding 35 points per contest, but you understand that if you've got to get to 42 or you've got to get to 40 or 37, it might be necessary that day when you're playing a guy like him, especially in the playoffs. And I think that that's something we should lean into a little bit more than being afraid of it. Our dads and our uncles, Buffalo Bills run, stop the run, Rex Ryan, moniker. Those are days of the past. I think that this is a passing league, and you got to stop Patrick Mahomes by outscoring him. I really do. I
I th-
believe that.
I think so too. And you know what? I think furthermore, a lot of people look at Buffalo and they say, "Oh my gosh, they've come up short against KC 3 out of the last 4 years." Everybody has come up short against the Kansas City Chiefs 3 out of the last 4 years,
Mm-hmm.
not just the
Mm-hmm.
Buffalo Bills. So it's just so happens I would almost combat that when people say that. I say to myself, well, they're the one team that's been in the final round with the
Right.
Kansas City Chiefs. They're the one team that's actually went toe to toe, to use a boxing reference, with the Kansas City Chiefs, and they're the only team that has the quarterback, I think, to do
That
that.
can match up.
That can match
Mm-hmm.
up, in
Mm-hmm.
these freakish ways of the things that Mahomes can do, the things that Allen can do. It's really exciting, and I definitely, they know it. Josh Allen knows it. Patrick Mahomes knows it. These guys are going to be playing each other for many many years to come. So the
Mm-hmm.
battle is not over. The war has not been lost. It's just as of now, things are stacked a little. Things have been stacked against us. But I go back, Rob, to Peyton Manning and Tom Brady. It took Peyton a few years to
Sure.
to beat the Patriots. Who's to say that that's not the same thing with Josh Allen, right? I think it's possible.
No, we could have another iteration of that. Absolutely. We could have
Sure.
a Manning versus Brady 2.0 for sure. So that's a definite great point. And it's something that, you think about. So when it comes about roster construction and the different things and the different values that you hold important, I think that it's important to kind of lean into the fact that, this is an offensive league. You've got a unicorn quarterback. Let's try to surround him with as many weapons as possible because of the fact that, when push comes to shove, when the weather gets colder, they love to talk about that. And, the running game, whatever the case may be, you've got to have just different things at your disposal is the whole point. Why did we lose
Sure.
that Cincinnati game? Was, a lot of people say that Dorsey was running the wrong route concepts and different things like the snow and the cleats, and we get all these different jokes about the team. However, when it comes down to it, Cincinnati executed when we didn't. And that's the same thing that happened in Kansas City when we played them and we finally got a chance to host Patrick Mahomes. I mean, they recorded, explosive plays all over the field
Right.
all day long, and we did not. So I
Right.
always will lean offense. I
Yeah,
really will.
explosiveness. That's what this game has really turned into. And Brandon Bean even said it himself. He said, "Speed. We need speed." It's like the Mickey Goldmill, Rocky Balboa rematching Apollo. You're too slow to go toe to toe with Apollo. You need to be faster in the second one, second time around.
That's right. You got it. I like that.
So God bless Carl Weathers, rest in peace. One of the
Rest in
one of the
peace.
legends for sure. So of course, we got some other news inside of One Bills Drive. The Bills extended draft, develop, retain. I think the retain part has been the thorn in almost every team's side in this free agency era. But when you can kind of get ahead of the jump and extend one of your own players, Buffalo extending Taron Johnson. He's now the highest paid nickel corner in the NFL. I'd like for you, Rob, to break down, just in your opinion, what Taron Johnson means to you, as a player on this team, as well. What do you feel like he means to this Bills defense?
I think that it's actually exponentially just getting bigger and bigger with the way that, you saw on X today, Jordan Poyer out there in Miami talked about how he's finally, quote unquote home and different things like that. So it's almost of a passing of the torch. LeBron, we're all, I'm an NBA fan as well, Ryan. So I'm always wondering, and, a lot of the NBA communities wonder, well, who's LeBron going to pass, the torch to? And then you see, guys like Anthony Edwards last night, with that, amazing vicious dunk. And you're like, this guy could be the next face of the league, or Wembanyama could be the next face of the league. So you're always wondering when those greats are going to pass the torch. When it comes to the safety position and it comes to the defensive backfield as a whole, when Jordan Poyer, Micah Hyde are as consistent as you're going to get. You're never going to see 7 years of consistency like that with those all pros. But it makes you feel good when you can pass the torch to a guy like Taron Johnson in this passing league. A nickel cornerback, not one of the most glamorous positions when you and I were growing up, but now it's a necessity. I mean, I'm playing Madden with my Kings, and they love to play Madden. And what are we playing every play? We're playing nickel defense, and we're in the nickel, and we're trying to match up with all of the different weapons, and we're playing against the Justin Jeffersons and yada yada yada, whoever my Kings want to pick on the other side. So I'm always playing nickel. We're always in that nickel package, and it was funny because on WGR they talked about how the Bills play some of the most nickel in the league, Ryan, and they do every single matchup, every single week. Sean McDermott is putting his team out in nickel on a lot of situations. That is their quote unquote base defense. So because of that, Taron Johnson has just been such a gem. I mean, you think about a 4th-round pick, small school, not a football school or anything like that. Weber State, I know it's March Madness time. I know more about Dame Lillard than I do about, Taron Johnson before I heard of him and Weber State. I didn't even know they played, football. So you see a guy like that. What an awesome success story. What an awesome way to see him come up through the ranks. And I do think that he is now the leader of that defensive backfield. I really do. I think everybody's going to be looking to him. You got young guys like Benford and different things like that. Rasul Douglas obviously is a trade, so he's not a part of the culture. This guy, Taron, has been here on his 3rd contract, and he's been here almost. I mean, if he sees out this contract, Sal Capaccio said he'll be here a decade. I mean, that's a long time. That's a long time. So I think that the defensive backfield will look to him as a leader because that's what he's been. And obviously, he authored, as I posted on Twitter, one of the greatest, highlights in Bills playoff history for sure.
Yeah, that was my next question too. I mean, you touched on something that I think is really important because us as fans and content creators and writers and all those people are in their own kind of Super Bowl, and we can all react to it in a way that makes us feel like Taron Johnson is going to be a leader. Then to hear him say those things, like when he signed the contract and said, "I want to use my voice a little bit more. I want to let people know what the expectations are, meaning the new teammates as well as the teammates that are already there." I think that's huge. Usually games are won and lost in the locker room, not necessarily on the field. They can be won on the field, but they could be won or lost in the locker room too. So that was really great to see that. It really was. And I felt like, coming off of losing those longtime players, Trey White, the way Trey White, and his career ended here, the way Poyer's ended here, ultimately to go to Miami, it was nice to see that they have a plan in terms of building culture consistently through their own team, draft, develop, and retain. And they're not just saying that; they're actually embodying that, which is pretty great for the Buffalo Bills, 100%. Now, my next question for you, Rob, is in regards to a Twitter poll that I ran, and this was something that I know you had some hot takes on it because when I first put this poll out, I thought I was actually with my girlfriend. We were out to dinner, and I was like, I'm about to put this Twitter poll out, and it's gonna explode. I just knew that it was gonna explode. So I had the fan base retweet it, which has hundreds of thousands of followers. But the question is one that I think is very tough to decide, at least in my opinion. But when I put out the poll of which quarterback would you rather have, Josh Allen or Jim Kelly, it was 93% to 7%. 93 said Josh Allen, 7% said Jim Kelly. I was shocked. I did not
Really?
think I was shocked. I really was. And I thought Josh Allen would win it, don't get me wrong.
Right.
But I was shocked because we have so many generations of fans that love those 4 Super Bowl teams, although they came up short. Hall of Fame career, Jim Kelly, Thurman Thomas, Andrew Reed, etc. There'll be plenty more, I think, coming off of those teams as well in the future. It's just a matter of when, not if. But um, What's your take on that? Why, or who out of the, I know kind of where you're going, but who out of those two would you choose and why?
It's funny that you say that because I am, I started the podcast because I am a product of the 90s. I was five, six, seven,
Right.
and eight for the Super Bowl run. So I am a 90s Super Bowl kid. Like that's literally where my fandom started from. And if you see here behind me in my studio, I've got, all of the greats that are listed up here. I've
Big
got
Bad
Thurman
Bills.
Thomas. And yeah, I've got you got the defensive guys there with Shane Collin, and I've got Bruce Smith up there and all of those. So I'm definitely a product of the 90s. I still would go Josh Allen, Ryan, because of the fact of it's just the sheer athleticism. One thing that you can't replicate is a baller, somebody that is not necessarily can be put into a box. Now, Jim Kelly definitely scrambled. We've got some highlights of him down in Miami and
Mhm.
AFC Championship, and he's barreling in
Diving.
playoff games and different things like that. He's doing everything. He's putting his body on the line. So I'm not saying he's not tough because he's a Pennsylvania kid. He was definitely tough and recruited. Actually, if you don't remember, but Penn State wanted him to play, but they wanted him to play linebacker. That's why he went
Yeah.
to
Yep.
Miami. They wanted him to play linebacker. He's a big kid. Listen, Josh Allen's athleticism, I think, puts him in rarefied air. That's why he's right behind me, as you see here on that Madden cover, is because he did something that even Jim Kelly couldn't touch. He's like a Cam Newton plus a John Elway put together. It's like, like if they had a child, and it's wild to see him on the field. That I don't think that we've ever seen anything like him. Now, Patrick Mahomes, you got to give him his flowers, and he's had the benefit of Andy Reid, and he's got the ring, so we've got to obviously genuflect to him and give him his respect. And I don't mind doing it because he's an amazing quarterback, off platform thrower, different things like that. There's not a quarterback outside of Patrick Mahomes I'd rather have than Josh Allen. And that's just hands down. That's not me being a homer. That's not being biased or anything like that. I think that when the chips are down, I want somebody that can avoid sacks. I want somebody that can make every throw. I want somebody that clearly can evade pressure, and then he'll actually run over your safety, or he'll run over your linebacker if you're not careful, or jump over somebody, hurdle avenue. So because of that, it leaves it where it's just a situation where I just wouldn't want anybody else to line up with outside of Patrick Mahomes when it comes to the NFL, the way that it's played right now. And that takes away, it really doesn't take away anything away from Jim. It's just
Right.
the evolution. It's just the evolution of football. And he is it.
Yeah, he definitely is. And to that point, Jim Kelly even said he's like, this was like 3, 4 years ago. So this wasn't
Uh,
anything recent. Well before the Madden cover, well before Haley Steinfeld, well before all that stuff. Before he was the big time guy that he is now, Jim Kelly said
sure.
something to the tune of, "My records are going to be broken. I've come to terms."
Mhm.
I've come to terms with it. Like some guys want their records to stay. Some guys have a hard time knowing that that was then and this is now. But he's like
Right.
unequivocally, 2 years into this guy's, 3 years into this guy's career, he's saying my records are
He could
gone.
tell.
They're gone.
He could
It
tell.
is what it is. So
Mhm.
I thought that was actually pretty cool. Like that's one of the greatest compliments you could receive is one of the predecessors, one of the guys that brought the
Absolutely.
team to the highest level possible says, hey, your talent is going to be
Beyond
Hall
mine.
of Fame
Yeah.
worthy and beyond mine. Yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Absolutely.
it was incredible. Seeing that, I was checking it every hour. It was a 24-hour poll and it shot up to
Okay.
80, then it shot up to 90. And I thought, wow, I didn't expect it to be that one-sided, but I do, to your point, I do get it. I do
Yeah.
get why it's all about that athleticism, all about that ability that really no, I don't even know if I think Mahomes has the ability to be great, obviously, but I think
Mhm.
there's certain dynamics of Allen's game that nobody else has.
Oh, absolutely
You
not. That's why I
know,
said, I mean, John Elway plus Cam Newton. If you combine the big physical running opposing style that
Mhm.
Cam Newton had, that's different than Lamar. Lamar is shifty. He's gonna juke you. He's more like a Michael Vick. He's gonna break your ankles. He's gonna make you look silly. He's gonna make those highlights. However, when you can combine that brute force, like a Cam Newton had, and tough to bring down like Ben Roethlisberger, and then the cannon like a John Elway. I mean, it
Right.
just that combination is something that's very sick. I mean, I've seen throws with him on the sideline where he's backing up. I mean, last year he gave us one where he's inches, I mean, centimeters from the sideline, and he is rifling it.
That was
You know,
incredible.
I
Yeah.
mean, and this is like, man, I just don't know many quarterbacks that can do that ever that we've ever seen.
And it goes to just that right there, knowing that they have such a talented quarterback They got to just continue to build around him. They got
Don't
to
get me
continue to
started.
just make the team. We cannot mess this
You
up. Like
wasted,
we
yeah, man.
cannot. And you've made that point pretty
So many times.
eloquently. You really have. And I think it's a worthy point. And I know that there is, Bills Mafia is as dialed in as any fan base possible, but there is a section of Bills Mafia that doesn't always quite want to be as
Mm,
blunt as we are.
mm.
And
Speak
maybe
to it
that just
as blunt or grow up
right,
or grow up.
right.
They
That's a big
start
part
to
of it
view
too.
it as we're spoiled, and it's not. Expecting greatness when you have greatness is not being spoiled. Expecting greatness when you have it is not being, mean or anything like that. This is professional sports, Ryan. So I don't
Yeah,
mean to take the mantle from me, but you got me on a tangent where I'm passionate about that topic because, DT and I made an entire episode on it's time for us to grow up as a fan base. It's okay to expect the Bills to get to the Super Bowl. It's okay to want that from your team. It doesn't mean that you're being greedy. It doesn't mean that
sure.
you're being ungrateful. And a lot of times, what you're speaking to, it happens a lot, Ryan, where the Bills Mafia contingency will say that you're being ungrateful for what we have, and then they want to mention the past. We're not in the 90s
We're not
anymore,
we're
and we
not in
can
the
have.
drought. We're long out
Oh,
of the
we're not in the
drought.
draft. Yes, it's over. So it's okay to graduate your thinking and your fandom to expecting greatness when it's clearly in front of you. We know we've got an opportunity. Every year that we don't get back to the Super Bowl is a year wasted, in my opinion. Every year.
Yeah, and I think I don't
Sorry
know.
to be so blunt.
Yeah, I think no, I
I know it's
agree.
your show.
I think
I
no, I
mean,
get it. I get it. And something that I want to touch on as I wrap this up here. Of course, I really appreciate you coming on, Rob. I'm really happy we didn't have any audio issues in this stream. We were
perfect.
we were trying to
Perfect.
we were trying to get through it last time. It was a little rough, but we were able to make it happen. So really appreciate you coming on. Nickel City Crew, actually tell the people that are tuning into this right now where they can find your show, and when to tune in.
Absolutely. Again, Rob Crippen. I am the co-host of Nickel City Crew, a podcast that I started back right before Perfection in the Park. I am 38, going on 39 this summer. Season ticket holder since 2009 down here in Charlotte. Yes, I drive up from Charlotte like a madman every single
Wow.
week for the games, and I am dedicated beyond what a normal person would be dedicated, and I do wear that as a badge of honor. My co-host Adam Rupsick, you can check him out on Instagram at Adam Rupsick, RUPCZYK. He is my co-host. We affectionately call him Dump Truck. That is his own nickname, so it's not anybody throwing any names on anybody like that. That's what he calls himself,
Yep.
DT. Dump
DT.
Truck's in the building, and that's my co-host, a longtime friend of mine. We met at the tailgate, and yeah, Nickel City Crew. Check us out at Nickel City Crew on all the platforms that you see Ryan on X and Instagram as well at Nickel City Crew, and we air every Thursday. Season 4 just started last week. We do nothing but live episodes now every Thursday on Twitter and Instagram and everywhere. We're all over.
Yeah, this
YouTube.
YouTube, yep, YouTube, can't forget that. Yeah, and as far as going live, this is the first episode I've done in quite some time that is not live due to some scheduling, looking to move into a new spot. So Rob being flexible, being the awesome guy that he is, I really appreciate you, Rob, making time for me today, and appreciate all the comments that are coming in. I'll be sure to get to those. I like to get to those in some form or fashion. I'll be sure to respond to those on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, wherever this is, all those platforms. That it's every
Absolutely.
platform, every streamable platform. That's what I'm going to say from now on.
I love it.
so,
Yes.
so definitely, as well, I really appreciate the show that you have and what you guys, the message that you guys try to share in terms of just a realistic approach towards the game of football and maximizing our potential. I think is on the minds of every fan. It's just the ones that are willing to say it. That's a huge
Yeah. Yeah.
differentiation
It's very taboo.
in terms of,
It's very
of what's
taboo.
going on right now. But I will say, Rob, just given what we've talked about thus far, what are your expectations, to bookend the show? What are your expectations for the Bills this upcoming season?
Yeah, I mean, I expect them to be a good team again, Ryan. Again, thanks for having me on. I appreciate the opportunity. I know DT will echo that. Hashtag build the base. So we love that Buffalo fan base where we simulcast on with you as well. I'm excited for the season. It seems like they always drag me back in like the Godfather. So it's funny that you asked that because Chopin Bulldog had a comment and had some commentary on their show yesterday afternoon, and then some guys were hitting me up on Twitter. One of my guys from high school was like, "I know you're getting ready to call in, Robin." I was like, "Nah. As long as they're not trashing stuff on Diggs, I'm good." And then all of a sudden they brought up this topic, and I was like, "You're such a jerk, Scotty. I'm on hold right now." And so I let off the 5 o'clock hour yesterday because of the same topic. Nothing other than a Super Bowl berth is going to satisfy me. So last year, full disclosure, and we had it on Nickel City Crew, I had to make a concerted effort, Ryan, to make sure that I enjoyed the season. It was the first time that I ever did that. I mean, I'm a season ticket holder. I'm a Bills fan since birth. I always love the regular season, always get excited. Last season was the first season where I had to make an effort I'm going to walk with my team from week 1 all the way through week 18. All 17 games, including the bye week, I'm going to walk with my team because I found myself getting very singular focused on the playoffs and then the final result. So I'm going to try to do that again this year, even though I know what I want. I want to have a Super Bowl berth. I'm not even asking for a Super Bowl, Ryan. I was 5, 6, 7, and 8 for the Super Bowl run. I just want to wake up as an adult on a Sunday morning and get ready to throw the biggest party I've ever thrown and cook out all the meats that I've ever thought of smoking, and just know that my team is playing in the biggest game at 6 o'clock tonight, and I've never had a chance to feel that since I was a child. And obviously it's much different than being a 5, 6, 7, 8-year-old than it is as an adult. So that's all I want. I just want to get to our 5th Super Bowl. And I've always said on Nickel City Crew, I'll let the chips fall, after that, whether we win or lose, it's all good. If we're 0-4 and we go to 0-5, then what are the jokes? The jokes at the barbershop can't be that much worse. It's no big deal. Boy, I love losing Super Bowls is what they would say now. And that's exactly what they would say after 0-5. But boy, if we can get that one, Ryan, boy, if we can get that one, the way that the city would just erupt, I just think of it and I can get chills. So I'm looking for a Super Bowl berth. I know that the talent is there to get it done. I think that this is a playoff team, regardless of the free agency additions or subtractions. I think that this is a playoff team. So I think you should expect your Bills to go to the playoffs, to be competitive. And, we've got a bugaboo in Missouri. We've got, some other teams, one down there in Texas that's up and coming, and some other teams to look over your shoulder and watch. And, a team out there, the Chargers out there out west, change coaches that I'm real fond of and familiar of with Michigan. So
proven winner,
listen,
right?
Joe Burrow's coming back out there in Ohio. So nothing gets easy, and nothing that's worth having is going to be easy. However, I do think that we have the talent to compete. I do
too. I love that. And the thought of them, finally getting it done and winning a Super Bowl, it brings
Oh,
chills,
God.
chills to my arms, tears to my eyes.
Yeah.
And hey, Rob, if there's any consolation, at least you were 5 or 6 when they were in those
5,
Super
6,
Bowls.
7, and 8.
I was 1 or 2. Like I had the binky in my mouth. Like I don't remember anything.
I don't remember anything.
I had the
Oh,
Jim Kelly toddler pajamas. That's all I know, just from photos.
Yeah.
Other
I
than that,
cried like a baby Super Bowl 25. I cried like my parents threw a party and I cried like a baby. And then I cried again on 27 when we got our faces, punched in 52-17. So I just want to wake up and be an adult and throw a party and put balloons on the mailbox and have a grand old time, knowing that because there's only 2 teams left that day, and that's why I'm okay with just a berth. I'll take the berth and let the chips fall because you know that you made it to the end. You're representing your conference. You are the best of the best, and you let it fall.
You're playing in the biggest game in the country.
That's it.
Yeah,
the biggest game in the world. Pretty much.
Yeah.
All eyeballs on you. So I'm okay with that outcome, and I do think that we have the talent to make it. So we'll see.
I do too. We'll see. Every year's a new year. Every team gets marginally better, marginally worse. Every year's different. So, man, I'm fired up now. I wish it was football season.
That's funny. I love it.
I love it. Well, Rob, of course, thank you so much for hopping on. Of course, throughout the season, I'm going to get a list of guests together. I would love for you to, hop on a pregame show, postgame show at some point during the season. We got a long off season ahead of us. I'll be sure to, hit you back up again in the near future. Maybe we could do like a little bit of a post-draft analysis type show and put something like that together. I really appreciate you hopping on with me today. I know the folks that are tuning in at home really appreciate it as well. I really appreciate you guys. The fan base is building the base. We've had consistently monster after monster week. And not only that, I think the social media interaction, I don't know about you, Rob, but every tweet, I'm like, holy heck, I got to put my phone on do not disturb for now, and then I'll go back and
Yeah,
I'll take a look
yeah.
at and then I'll go back and take a look at it. But
It's churning. It's churning. Everybody is getting amped up. You could tell that it's in the air.
it's in
Absolutely.
the
You
air.
could tell.
And one last final thing that you mentioned that we'll both kind of, leave a caveat to. Let's stop with the Stephon Diggs hate.
Oh man.
Let's stop with that. I tweeted that yesterday. We hear more about Stephon Diggs and his Twitter than Tyreek Hill and his
Or
extracurricular
anybody. Yeah, yeah,
activities. It's like,
yeah.
come on, guys, let's be better. Let's be better.
Uh, yeah, I mean, you're ending the show, so we're not we're not even gonna start. Stephon Diggs is my number one topic to talk about, and outside of Sean McDermott. So yeah, I mean, Nickel City Crew already knows we had an entire episode last year on the miseducation of Stephon Diggs, and then people were going at him on Twitter, and then I mean, he even took the time to address a mere mortal. And when I say mortal, obviously we're all people. I'm talking about sports, from sports
Mhm.
to average Joe mortal. Somebody said, well, address the fact that you lost us the game by dropping that pass.
Yeah.
You know what
Yeah.
he did? He stood up as a man, 10 toes down, and said, you know what, that drops on me, but don't act like I'm not him. And I immediately was like, preaching. You don't have anybody to talk to, or to actually be accountable for out here in the Twitter world, Stephon. And I retweeted the episode because we did an entire episode, Ryan. It is a very big passion of mine. Outside of Sean McDermott, there's nobody I love talking about Stephon Diggs, a 3-time captain, voted by his peers, not by us, not by Ryan Take Sports, not by Nickel City Crew, not by Buffalo fan base, by the people that go to work with him. 3-time captain voted. So the people that go to work with him said that he can lead them, and I think that should mean something. I think everybody needs to back off just a tad, just
I
just a tad.
I completely agree. I think he's one of the most honorable dudes that has ever lined up in a Buffalo Bills red, white, and blue uniform. He's an all-time great in franchise history, and he didn't start his career here. I mean, what
That's
does
right.
that tell you? So
Mm-hmm.
I think ever since he got here, he's been elite. I don't see that slowing down anytime soon, even as he approaches 30. And I think he's the
Emotional
man.
leader. Oh,
Yeah,
emotional
emotional
leader
leader.
gets them
Yeah,
fired up.
yeah.
Mm-hmm. He's
There's
elevated Josh
there's
Allen. People forget that. Josh
yeah,
Allen was not the quarterback he was before he
right,
got here.
right.
Like,
There's
I
nothing I
mean, a lot of
really,
disrespect.
there's nothing I can find, even if I wanted to look, that I don't like about him. Like I don't
Yeah.
understand. It's just I think people just like to grab headlines and just I don't know, just try to drudge stuff
In
up that just
addition that
doesn't
don't,
matter.
but in addition to the fact of how we started this show with letting everybody know that it's sometimes we'll be uncomfortable being blunt. Just because he's blunt and you're uncomfortable doesn't mean that he's
Right.
not great.
That's a
They're
great point.
they're intimidated by him.
I
We
think
talked about
so.
that on that episode. They're intimidated by his passion,
Hmm.
the fact that he doesn't back down. He rubs people the wrong way. He gets them uncomfortable, and sometimes in a professional setting, especially professional sports, you need to be a little bit uncomfortable.
Fighter through leadership, I think.
Mm,
Yeah,
mm,
that's a pretty good one. Right.
mm.
Well, Rob, I really appreciate you hopping on. It was great to have you on the show today. Of course, I'll be sure to see you guys all next week, Wednesday at 8 live. You'll be able to comment. I'll get to your comments, of course, in the normal fashion. Just had some scheduling conflicts this week, but of course, I wanted to get Rob on the show. Always great to chat with you, Rob. Of course, keep adding to that beautiful display that you got behind you. A lot of the throwback stuff brought a smile to my face seeing that. I love the man cave decked out.
There you go. Appreciate it, man. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it, Ryan.
Of course. See you next week at 8. Thank you, Bills.